I can sit there, or again. Oh, okay.
Do you need the?
No, I'm allowed. Okay, so I was diagnosed at 14 years old. At that time, when I was younger, people started to notice that stuff was odd about Elsbeth. But at that time, it was 1994, the DSM had just changed over to accept Asperger's syndrome as something to be had. And really, most people were looking for boys. And they were really looking for Rain Man, if anybody's seen that movie, and I look nothing like Dustin Hoffman. So I was out for a while, and my diagnosis finally formally came through at 14. When I transitioned out of high school, and I need to let you know that high school for me was a very good place to be. I was finally in a very good place. Public school was not. Public school was not interested in honoring the IEP that they were given. Public school didn't really have a whole lot of room for people with disabilities. Public school was not a friendly place to be. High school was, the school I went to was Beale, and Beale was an art school, so everyone was weird. So if you were weird, you're fine. So I finally had friends there that were my age. I finally had clubs I was able to join. I had stuff. Leaving that to go to a brand new school, I went to the University of Toronto with a joint program at Sheridan Art College. So I was in a brand new town. I was going to live in a brand new building. That was not in any way appealing. Why can't I stay where I am, where I'm happy, where I have friends? I could just stay there forever, not changing that routine. However, even in those last years, and I graduated in 4 years, but because of the art program, I stayed an additional 2. I was starting to get a bit big for the school. I was in my 20s. It was becoming time. The school will let you stay till 21. They realized how long I had been there and said, "Get out, leave us." So I left, but I was very anxious. And in that first year of university, I was very angry and very anxious because I was dealing with a lot of loss, and it's a strange loss, but it was loss I was in a new town, I was in a new building, I was in a new school with a new routine and new expectations and new teachers, and we toured. We went on like 4 or 5 tours. We went on like 4 or 5 tours of the UTM campus, the University of Toronto in Mississauga, lots of deer. I befriended them. The layout for the townhouses was very the same. I lived in the townhouses for 4 of 6 years, and they were very much the same, and I had a myriad of roommates. We will get to roommates. And at that time, I avoided group activities or mandatory group stuff if I could help it. There was some, like I didn't go to Frosh Week, I avoided the, welcome to your first year, come have, no, I went home. And didn't really want to hang out with people very much. There was mandatory get-together stuff, and so I went to that because I had no choice. The first choice when you're living with an invisible disability is, do I tell anyone? Because if I just stand here, you don't see disability. I'm not in a wheelchair, I don't have crutches, I don't have a guide dog. Some of us have guide dogs, I don't. And so people automatically think, I'm looking at a normal registered trademark person. And my expectations are normal registered trademark. And that, in some ways, that's excellent. You're not automatically limiting Elsbeth by saying, oh, she's autistic, she's never going to do this. And people do that all the time. When you see someone in a wheelchair, you're like, that person is never going to be able to do X, Y, Z, And so when you don't see those things, you don't limit me. The problem comes when Elsbeth can't give you normal registered trademark, she gives you autism registered trademark. And people start to freak out and get very upset because they had an idea of where this was going to go. And it didn't go that way. So having an invisible disability can be an awesome thing. You're not limiting me. On the other hand, it can be a negative thing. You're not making allowances for me straight away. And the reverse is true for visible disabilities. You make assumptions right away, and you're not recognizing my skills are the things that I can do automatically. That's just like everyone else. So there's ups and downs. I did tell my roommates, first night, I just, we're living together, you're going to figure it out. Because as much as I don't look like I have a disability, if you spend more than 20 minutes with Elsbeth, you are going to know something it just does not add up. You expected, you did not get. So I told my roommates, and we called them Dons. It sounded very godfathery, but we had Dons. Don't sit out your coffee. And they were like our RAs. They were assigned to look after a block of houses and the students in them. If the students had problems, they went to the Don, and the Don made them offers. No. I gotta stop watching the movie. So I told them straight away, because they were going to be dealing with me more steadily, they were going to figure it out. Likewise, I told my professors, if the class number was under 50, I would tell them. If the class number was over 50, odds are the professor or the TA was never going to have time with me and wouldn't know me in the first place. It's like 100+ kids, who cares? But if it was under 50, the odds of them dealing with Elsbeth on a more one-on-one basis was higher, and it was better for them to know. I did join a club, because there were clubs that pertained to my special interest, which was anime at that time, so there was an anime club, so I joined, and I got interaction with people. When I lived at the dorm, I lived in my room. And in some ways that was awesome because it meant I got work done and I got to, kind of decompress after, you need hours after school. You need to just, and that was good. And in some ways it kept me on good standings with my roommates because Elsbeth didn't cause trouble. She's never around. Whatevs. So that worked out very well. I received weekly counseling from Accessibility. Some students on the autism spectrum will not go with accessibility. It's voluntary. Some of us feel like we're not disabled. What's the problem? I should be able to do this on my own. I am smart. I am capable. I don't need your help. And that sort of can come from a place of pride. It can come from, I want to prove myself. It can come from just my own way of thinking, and that's fine. Although it's important that those services are there, and those services did help me to do my best. It wasn't that Elsbeth couldn't do it, it was that I needed some assistance in order to do my very best. And my comorbidity is panic disorder, and let me tell you, you ditched pride a long time ago with panic disorder. There's no pride when you feel like you're physically falling apart. You don't get to be, you don't get to be better than anybody when you're coming apart at the seams. And so I did have to decide I would allow myself 3 classes to miss. You can only miss 3 classes. And that would be for if I needed a mental health day. If there was a day that I could not pull it together, dock it off. If you were sick, like you got a cold or something and you just needed to spend the day in bed, dock it off. If there was, you have like 5 papers and you've got to do it now, dock off. And so I made sure that I had a cushion of 3 days that I knew I could miss to take as a health day for me to say, I can't do this today. I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen. I traveled home every week, which was excellent but costly. It meant that I was going home to familiarity, my cats, my family, my cats. I kept visiting my high school and pretending like this was not something that was happening. I was still going to school. One of the teachers said I attended high school more regularly than the students in school. I took a reduced course load. I received weekly counseling with accessibility. I know I mentioned that, but I kind of need to double back on that. By having a weekly check-in. And sometimes it was just there to say, hey, doing okay, saw an episode of like Star Trek and we talked that, but it was checking in with someone. It was touching base with someone. Someone saw me in a week and made sure, and it was a reminder because my executive functioning skills were
Elsbeth, how long are those check-in meetings?
About an hour.
About an hour?
Yep. Although they could have easily been half an hour if it was, I mean, sometimes it was, Elsbeth, did you remember to sign up for the test extension? Did you remember to sign up for that? Or, here, I'll help you, ask for an extension on this paper. So it was a check-in. And they were an hour, but I mean, easily could have been half. I brought with me a shoebox full of calm down stuff, and mostly it was like Disney movies on DVD, like a sample of my emergency medication that I take if my panic attacks get out of hand, fidgety stuff, so that if I felt like I needed to spend the night sort of shut down, I had that box, and I could say, I've got, those small chocolate bars you give out on Halloween, here's a treat, you pop in a movie, you're not doing homework tonight, you're not studying tonight, you're taking care of you. And that was sort of my biggest rule, that I had to come first. Because if I was in the weeds, if I couldn't take care of me, how can I do anthropology 204 if I'm falling apart? It's not gonna happen. I have to come first. Sometimes my personal hygiene skills were not the best. Like I had 2 outfits for an entire week. Sometimes your students will forget to wear deodorant, like I did on Monday. I'm really sorry about that. So, little skills like that. And most people are like, oh, I need to wear deodorant or I'm gonna stink and no one wants to be around me. That's an extra step that sometimes gets missed. I wore it this morning, don't worry. I was like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna be amazing, it's gonna work. And remembering to check emails. So sometimes, and it looks like laziness, but that's executive functioning at its best. Where, you're like, oh, I need to check my emails, but Tumblr's on, oh my gosh. Second year, I joined an autism support group, and this is really important. Sheridan had an autism support group. And that meant that once a week, and it acted as a secondary check-in, and it was run by the accessibility department. So if you weren't already receiving accessibility services, you were now, and they sort of ran interference. Mostly we just sat around and watched cat videos or played board games, but they also did have information sessions that they would put on and say, one of them was like, how to recognize positive relationships for dating. What makes a positive relationship versus a not positive relationship? How do you guys, what helps you for studying? And we'd have these mini, and they would be, it was from 11 to 1, so it was a couple hours, and it was a drop-in. People kind of came in and they left. Sometimes we had snacks. We were recognized as an official club. But it was run and directed by the accessibility department at Sheridan. And that was really good because suddenly people had a place to go and people to meet, and that was really important. Third year is special because so the townhouses were set up for 4 people. Person number 4 never arrived, and they for some reason didn't fill room number 4. I was sure they would, they didn't. Person number 3 was also on the autism spectrum. Oh yes. She was excellent. She was in the English Lit program, and between the two of us, we loved animals. We wanted to talk about animals. She didn't like the television being on. I didn't like whistling, so she didn't whistle, and I didn't turn on the TV. Person number 2 left in the middle of the night, packed her bags, and left. I don't know why. Mom says she knows why. 2 Aspies under one roof. I called the house the madhouse. We did great. We were so efficient. It was amazing. No one talked to anyone. No, it was great. And we had a great time. Still fairly reclusive though. Like I didn't go to pubs. I didn't go to, extracurricular. The Dons would be like, there's a soccer game, and I was like, hope you had fun. Going to watch YouTube videos. By 5th and 6th year, I was in the same apartment with more or less the same roommates. There was one person left and a new person came in, but there was the 4 of us. And this was an apartment complex. I was in the same room for 2 years, which was excellent. And most of my roommates were the same people, which was awesome. Overall, I was still pretty awkward with social approaches. I did learn that if you approach someone and say, like, a way to start a conversation and to seem empathetic to other people, you could say, how are you doing on that project? And then watch that person spiral into, like, I have 5 other things to do, I didn't finish it, and I have a test, and you should just sit back and be like, oh yeah, and then, and you would, that was a great way to have them talk to you. And you sort of knew what they were going to say, so you didn't have to worry. And you got to seem super empathetic and caring. Oh, you know. I did join another club. There was a knitting club. We called it the Stitch and Bitch. I apologize. Strong language to follow. But it was great because it was going to somebody else's place. And that was an issue. When do I go to somebody else's dorm? When is that okay? How do I just knock on the door and they come? Is this a bad time? When is a good time to go to a party? I wanted to try a party. I'm in my 20s, I want to go to a party. This sounds great. Party. Oh man. But especially as a female, how do I recognize signs of danger when you're out there? Women, you're nodding your head. You know what to do. Guys, you have your own stuff that you have to look out for. What do? Who teaches you that? Because we don't pick that up, and I have a difficult time understanding other people's intentions, or that other people would like to deceive me for something. Like, deception is really hard. I take people like literally at face value. People are like sarcastically, I don't like dogs, and I'm like, you're a terrible person. I never want to know you again. And they're like, no, it's a joke. I do love dogs. Familiarity is a plus. So having somebody that, or having the same place, having a knowledge of where you are on campus is great. Overall, like me today, after graduating, I'm still pretty socially awkward in some situations. I have learned a lot. It is a learning process, and you learn your whole life. You're never done. I just need to learn about new social situations. Right now, I've been working with the Advocate's Office, the Provincial Advocate's Office. We put together a We Have Something to Say, and it was looking at disabilities in Ontario. So it wasn't just autism. There were people with cerebral palsy, there were people with acquired brain injuries, there were people on the autism spectrum, and so on and so forth. And it was really good to work together because we came up with this document. We put it forth to the government to say these are recommendations for people living in Ontario with disabilities and what we would like to see changed. And so that was really awesome to work with them. We've also set up a multidisciplinary team to try to find employment. Right now, employment for people on the autism spectrum with a post-secondary certificate is like unemployment is 70%. So, I mean, I have a BA from the University of Toronto, and it means that much. I still am looking for work, and I probably will be for a while. Only a few of my friends are employed, and they are employed part-time. While I have ODSP does not pay the bills. It doesn't. We need to find ways to make sure not just that people are successful, but people are successful after school. Because while accessibility offered counseling and supports, when I graduate, I'm not entitled to any of those supports anymore. And if you're past the age of 16 to 18, there's nothing out there really for you. Like, no steady program really set up for you. At 27, I'm considered an old dog, and that there's nothing like feeling like your life is over at 27. Like, you want to talk depression, man. It's one of the things we're working on. And one of the things we put forward to the government was saying employment needs to be able to happen. We need people, because it's not just getting a job. It's having a reason to get up in the morning. It's taking pride in who you are. It's having money because, I like to eat. It's having something to say, this is what I do, and I contribute, and I do these things, and that's important. Even people who retire don't generally stay retired for long. They volunteer. No, you don't. They join garden clubs, they maybe take on part-time work, they volunteer, they do things, because nobody just sits at home forever, that's not that fun. So, I mean, I come and I do these presentations and I like to tell you about my lived experience, but I also want you to know that it's just one person's experience. There are many experiences, and they're all valid and all, a part of the spectrum and a part of what autism is and what it looks like. Ultimately, I want to end with letting you know that I don't have any regrets about this. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, disability is really terrible and that's so sad, because I can't imagine my life like yours. I can't imagine what it would be like to live like Elsbeth, and that must be pretty terrible, right? But panic sort of sucks. Okay, let's just clear that sucks. But autism gives back in a way, and I don't have any regrets about this. This hasn't been a funeral. This has been my life. Thank you.